This is the calm before the storm, before the surge. And when it comes, and it will come, never will so many ask so much of so few. We'll do all that we can to support them. We all need to take steps to reduce close human contact. That's how the virus is spread. Not just at public gatherings or in public places, but also in our own homes, places of leisure and places of work. Large public gatherings are cancelled. All pubs and bars are shut. And we've asked people to curtail or cancel social gatherings like parties, weddings and other celebrations. I know these choices won't be easy, but they are necessary.
I travelled back from Europe, and when I got to Ireland I noticed that the restrictions were a lot more severe there than anywhere else. And of course, as a performer, I wasn't allowed to perform.
I think we've got to do what we can to look after each other.
Well, for me personally, it's meant the end of my business.
It was a bit novel at first, and you kind of get behind it, and then the novelty wore off quite fast.
You didn't know if it was real, you didn't know if it was necessary.
I'm sick of living. I'm sick of following rules and regulations that just don't work.
People are used to the government telling them what to do and how to act and how they should be. So it's nice to have people that think outside the box and can think for themselves.
Well, the restrictions for me, well, I think they're bollocks. Absolute bullshit. But for me, to be honest, I just got on with my life.
It's very unnatural. It's very unnatural for human beings to be isolated. I mean, I had lived in a relatively isolated place, but I would travel in between and I would meet people and have friends. And the lockdown didn't stop me.
I'm taking me chances and I'm very much prepared to catch a virus, but I want to go back to living.
That feeling of depression when all those rules and regulations wasn't for me. I had to find a way to do something. So I put up a Facebook post, and a simple thing. I just said, I'm willing to perform anywhere in Ireland. Is anybody interested? And loads of people responded. I started getting booked everywhere. So I said, well, let's turn this into a tour. So the aim was to do 32 counties in Ireland, and that was the aim. And it began in County Waterford. There was a yoga studio there, some lovely people. And to be honest with you, it wasn't much of a show at the start. I was nervous. I think the audience were nervous. And, but the show developed as I went along.
Hey!
Hey! Hello. Hello, Sheila's friends. Welcome, welcome. It's a strange time, isn't it? When we have to sneak into a yoga studio illegally and hope we don't get arrested on the way, caught having cups of tea and glasses of water with friends, caught listening to a story. When I was travelling in my private car from Sligo to Waterford yesterday, I was nervous. I was afraid that I'd get pulled over by a policeman and he'd go, "Where are you going?" And then you have a choice. You could lie, you could tell him, "I'm going shopping," or you do the lie that everybody does. My mom leaves Lidl bags there and she just points at it. And my dad says he's going to see a grave. But they could ask you, which grave are you going to? Which grave are you going to? Your grave, if you keep asking me fucking questions.
Well, I don't think any man, any organisation has the right to restrict people's movements. Everyone can make their own choice, decide what they want to do, how they want to respond to the crisis.
People cannot continue their life. They cannot live their life any longer anymore. For what?
At this stage, I have 5 of these penalty things, that technically I could get jailed for because I'm not going to pay them.
I want to see the proof, the evidence of it, because it's not clear. We are lied to, left, right and centre, and that's what I'm very concerned about.
I think actually
if there was such a serious, deadly thing going around killing people, you'd have a lot less people going out.
I don't like feeling restricted, so I decided that this was either going to make me or break me. And I decided to do what I needed to do to stay sane, stay healthy, and keep my joy alive.
So what happened here is I wrote a story, and I've been travelling around Ireland telling this story about, my grandmother told me, but it being Ireland, as I started telling the story, I picked up some other stories on the way. I'm here now to tell you a story. And this story I dedicate to my grandmother, Noreen. I told my grandmother, Granny, I've made a show about you. You're the star of my new show. And she says, well, I'm 96 years old in March, so finally I'm going to be famous. It's been a tough year for the elderly. Certainly my grandmother, I wasn't able to see her because she had to go into a home for COVID-related reasons just before COVID started. So when I visit her now, I have to do it from outside the home, and I wave up at the second floor of the window and I ring her on the phone, and she always says, Aido, you look so handsome, but I know she can't see me. I could send, you know, a 6'7" man from the Congo there, ring her from the warmth of my own bed, and she'd still be, oh, Aido, you look so handsome. I got a phone call just before Christmas from my mother, and she said, the doctor said that Granny won't make it through Christmas. So you get a chance to visit her one last time indoors. The time came, I drove to the home, and there's a big red door. I rang the doorbell, and a woman, a nurse with brown hair and brown eyes and a mask on, opened the door. Have you got an appointment? Yeah, my name's Aidan Killian. I'm here to see my grandmother, Noreen. Oh, Noreen, lovely lady. And she points at the hand sanitizer. I'm like, okay, yeah, great, that's good. And then she goes, put your stuff over there. Put my stuff over there. And she goes, your mask. I went, yeah, I forgot my mask. Not to worry, here you go. And she gave me a mask and I put it on. I was like, great, now can I see my grandmother, please? Oh, just one more thing. You see that box over there? Can you take one of those and put it on? So, okay. Fuck. I take out this blue plastic full-bodied medical suit, disposable thing, and I put it on until I'm covered head to toe. And she goes, follow me, and she walks me through the corridor, and I see elderly people looking out windows. And she stops and goes, your grandmother's in there.
One of the women works in the old folks' home in Skibbereen. She caught it.
I know some friends of mine that their elders had COVID related, possibly, but no, I don't know anyone.
I know someone in the UK, but not in Ireland.
And what happened to the person in the UK?
She was a mother of some of my friends, and she was a health worker. Yeah, she caught it and died pretty quickly.
It's actually one person I know personally who had COVID, so it does exist.
Well, there are people who you meet and they say, oh, I think I've got COVID, or I think I had COVID, or I know somebody with COVID, and then when you kind of ask them really, you know, how did they know, they kind of don't really know. So apart from those people who I think, you know, tend to be, if you put an idea into someone's head, they're going to like think, it's, you know, it's true, or they're going to imagine it is. It's kind of, we're like that as human beings. Like,
we're quarantining healthy people. It's the first time in history of the world that that's ever been done. So I find that, I question that.
Now, living with a grandmother or any grandparent is amazing because they love cooking for you. So I got all the food and sweets and scones and potato cakes, and all I'd have to do is clean up. But cleaning up in a granny's house is easy. Just give it a quick old sweep, sure they can't see anything anyway. And when I was old enough to drive, she'd like me to drive. I used to say prayers with her. She said the 5 decades of the rosary, and she'd want me to say 1 decade, and I was happy to do it because it made her happy. And she said I was the only person to say the prayers with her since Grandad died. So I drive her to Mass, and at Mass, like on Sundays, it's the worst day for Mass. It's a terrible day for Mass. It's like I was hungover. I shouldn't even been driving. I was shaking. So I had a trick. I'd stay down the back where the Eucharist was, and I'd fall asleep. I'd be telling her I'd be praying to God, and she'd be doing the Mass thing. And then One day, this guy who works there and he helps the priest out, he comes up to me and goes, "You have your back turned to the priest. It's a bit rude, don't you think?" I was like, I was having a conversation with God and you just interrupted. It's a bit rude, don't you think? And I told my granny. And I wondered, like, would she get annoyed because, you know, the religious thing? But no, she just laughed.
People have to realise that there is maybe 10 or 20 years where a lot of the arms, again, of state, the media and the politician and the education system have really not given the people the skills to ask questions and to engage in critical analysis of an issue. And the media have not engaged in showing both sides of a particular question. So I think that is actually all derives to instill fear in people. And the reason why there's a whole area of study in neurolinguistic programming and in propaganda to increase people's fear is because when ordinary men and women are in a state of fear, they actually lose their ability to rationally analyse the situation and they can be easily manipulated.
I found it very, very tough because I didn't believe in it. I didn't believe there was a reason to do it in the first place. I didn't, when I was seeing everything on the televisions and the media, it wasn't sitting with me. My gut feeling was telling me, and I do believe that I was getting a bit of inspiration from God, to be honest.
You know, we have to stop looking to the government. I don't want to answer to them. I can't speak to them.
It makes you feel so angry. It makes you think, you know, there's something else going on. Why would you stop people meeting? I mean, millions of years we're supposed to be living on this earth, and they tell us we can't meet up because some illness is going to make us sick. I mean, how would we have survived all the races and generations of people? How would they have got to here if a bug killed you? No, that's ridiculous. That doesn't make sense.
I met so many interesting people who are coming together, gathering at the time, questioning the narrative. They're just trying to see what's actually going on here. And these same people would have been marginalised by the media, called tinfoil hat wearers, lunatics, granny killers, conspiracy theorists. And the funny thing is, it's hard not to be a conspiracy theorist at the time, because all of a sudden you'd hear stories about the Great Reset and the World Economic Forum and that crazy James Bond villain Klaus Schwab. So are they connected? Are the restrictions connected to all this? I didn't have a clue. For me, I was just driving around Ireland, having a laugh and telling a story about my grandmother.
Now is the historical moment, the time, not only to fight severe virus, but to shape the system.
I saw a new side of Ireland, maybe the real Ireland. I got to see thousands of people, young, old, from all different ways of life. They invited me into their home. They introduced me to their friends, their neighbours, who were all gathering. And these people were meeting up regularly. They were eating food. They were drinking out of the same glasses. They were hugging each other. They were kissing each other. They were dancing. And the thing is, still to this day, they're all still alive.
We didn't learn about Irish mythology so much at school. I was lucky to get bits from my grandmother. And her version of the story goes like this. Balor was a huge giant, and he had one big eye, and he'd open his eye and whoosh, he could kill any man, woman or child in this country. And no one could kill him. Nobody could harm him. He was invincible. except, so it was foretold, a male that came from his own seed. So he decided never to have a son. You can imagine how nervous Connor he was when his wife was giving birth. To be fair, she was probably a little bit nervous herself. You can imagine how happy he was when he held his daughter Etnu, little baby Etnu, and he held her hand in his hand and he smiled. And then his advisor said, King Balor, yes, she's female, she cannot harm you, but one day she could grow to become a woman, give birth to a male child, and that would be the end of everything you've built.
Don't get me wrong, maybe like everyone at the very start, I was weary of what was supposedly the impact of COVID. Looking at the data and the analysis by people much smarter than me, you know, professors and doctors and scientists across the world, because there are so many across the world that are analysing this situation and have been from the very start and saying, look, yeah, there's some risk here, but it is certainly not what is being sold, not what's been sold by the media, not what's been sold by the government.
I'm not vulnerable. I'm healthier than many of younger people. You know, I live a very healthy life.
I have to admit, it was strange doing shows in the sense that I'd never know who I'd meet, who would turn up. Would there be 8 people there? Would there be 100 people there? Would there be kids? Would there be grandparents? And I didn't even know where I'd perform. Like, I performed in a castle, I performed in an abbey, in people's gardens, living rooms, kitchens, barns, a forest, the beach.
And in this story, there's also a man who had a dream, a man by the name of Cian McKinty. Now, Cian was one of the high kings of the Tuatha Dé Danann. And Cian's dream was different. He dreamt that Balor was dead in a pool of his own blood. And then he'd see the face of a woman with curious green eyes, and he'd wake up, look at his pyjamas and go, no, not again. So he went to the wise old druidess, and she said, this isn't a dream, this is a prophecy. One day Ireland could be free, but you're going to have to risk everything. And he said, I will risk everything to save Ireland. Good, because you're going to have to dress you up as a woman. So I'm one of the kings of the Tuatha Dé Danann and I'll never dress as a woman. So the next day he's in a pretty little dress on the boat with the druidess on the way to Tory Island. She puts back her head and the skies go grey and the rain falls down and the waves hit off the boat. And as they get to the entrance of Tory Island, the druidess shouts out, we're 2 lost women at sea, open the gate. The women were not threatened by 2 women, so they opened the gate. But just in case, they sent Etnu, a young woman now, to her room for safety, and they welcomed in the guests and they sat down with food and drink. And then once again the druidess puts her head back. She sends the 13 women to sleep, looks at Cian and says, what are you waiting for? I just want to finish my chicken wings. Come on. So Cian gets up, he goes up the stairs towards Princess Etnu's door, and he went to open the door, but he stopped and he knocked and he waited. And when she opened the door and he saw her curious green eyes, he went to speak, but there were no words. Shh. And she held his hand. They entered into the room and they sat on the bed. Now, there's 2 versions of what happened next. My version or my grandmother's version. Which one would you like?
Granny's.
All right, so Granny said, Granny's version is, that night they got married. And the Holy Spirit came down upon them and blessed them with a child. 9 months later, she gave birth to little baby Lugh, and she held that baby in her hands and held his little hand in hers.
I was blessed with weather the whole way through, and it's Ireland. Everywhere it was sunny. There was only once I remember it raining, and that was in an old church ruin, an abbey in Westmeath. There was no roof and it was raining, but sure, you know, the show must go on.
And then she heard the sounds. Boom, boom, boom. Balor was climbing the stairs 4 steps at a time. You could hear the women screaming as he knocked them out of the way with the palm of his hand. And as he got to the door, he squeezed his fist through, grabbed baby Lugh and flung him out the window. Splash! Baby Lugh hit the sea, sinking down, down, down. But the water started opening and the baby came to the top of the waves, looking towards the sun as the water ushered him to the shore, while the druidess was waiting. Took baby Lugh, held him against her breast, before disappearing into the forest. Granny, you were a bit like that Trudess because you looked after me when I was young. Oh, I wouldn't like to be compared to some strange pagan woman, thank you very much. But it's true, like, she really was always there for me, and I'm sure any of you who are lucky enough to have grandmothers or have had grandmothers probably know what that's like. But as long as I remember, my granny has been always there for me. The hardest thing for me would have been the isolation for my grandmother. I felt it was very cruel. My grandmother was really social. She'd have many visitors, a few visitors a day. When she was able to, she'd visit people. And she loved talking, she loved listening, she loved being involved. And all of a sudden, she wasn't allowed any visitors. And she didn't really know why. She didn't understand that. And I didn't understand it either. Yeah, I'm afraid of the consequences of people losing their ability to earn a living. I'm afraid of the isolation caused to the elderly and everybody. In fact, the whole country, this whole year, the only one who hasn't been isolated is the virus itself. And that baby Lugh grew up to be a fine young man, and he stood at the hill of Tara outside King Nua's fortress. My name is Lugh, son of Cian McKinty, High Chieftain, High King of the Tuatha Dananns, son of Etnu, Princess of the Fomorians, grandson of Balor, High King of the Fomorians. I've come to speak with King Nua. Ach, so you're related to Balor, is it? And you want to come in and meet our king? Hang on a second and I'll run down and open that gate as fast as my legs can go. But the gates remained shut. My name is Lugh of the Long Hand. Och, you have a long hand now, do you? Hey, why don't you go into the forest there and make some use of that hand of yours? The only way he could get in, he was told, was if he had a skill that no other man or woman had beyond those gates. And he said, I can be a champion. But they had Ogma, the greatest champion of them all, the giant brother of King Nua. He goes, I can be a magician. They had 3 of them. I can be a jewellery maker. I can make weapons. I can carry food and drink to the king. I can be the cupbearer, open that gate. But the gate remained shut. Lugh said, if you have one man who can do all of these skills, let me in, and if not, I will go. Open the gate, said King Nua in the distance, and the gate was open. They tested him. He played chess 9 times against their best chess player, and he won each and every time. Ogma threw a giant rock the size of this stage at him, and he caught it, and he threw it back just as far. And when he told stories to the court, he did so to the sound of laughter. And when he played the harp in between the notes, there was a silence so powerful that the only thing you could hear was the sound of tears rolling down the faces of men. And when he finished a poem of an ancient language, the eldest Druid bowed to him. And King Nua stood up and did something that maybe no king had ever done before. He took his crown and he went to place it on the head of Lugh. Ogma and the other soldiers stood up and protest. It's okay. He's spoken like a true king today. For this short moment in time, let him speak to us as king. King Nua sat down and he looked up at Lugh on his throne.
I don't like masks. I've never worn a mask. I will never wear a mask.
I haven't put it on once throughout the whole pandemic. What do I think of them? Well, that says it all.
Masking's not about protecting you. Masking, I think I was one of the first ones to call it a muzzle. And that's all it is a muzzle.
Comedy didn't always land. It wasn't always that funny, maybe because there was a sense of nervousness in me and possibly the audience. Are we going to get caught? Will the cops turn up? Which did happen now and again. But I notice now the same material is landing really well. So the people who maybe thought, we're not allowed to laugh at this, they're now into it.
There's a woman in this room and she told me that during the dark times she went shopping and a man came up to her and shouted in her face, "You've got no mask on." To which she responded, "I've no knickers on either."
The people that I met along the way that were probably insulted by the media, called names, they came across as very intelligent, critical thinking people who are trying to understand, analyse what's truly going on. And I suppose it inspired me, meeting these people, to start going, oh yeah, what is going on? Is there more to this?
I don't believe in masks personally for myself. I don't believe they work. I've never worn one. I have been confronted on one occasion only. And when I was approached, the person was very much in my face, and I just put my hand out in front of me and I said, "Excuse me, you're in my space." And they stepped back, and that was it. So realise very early on that if you stand in your own beliefs and stand in your own truth, that nobody really will annoy you or really will even question you, because they almost make a presumption that you are exempt. So I mean, for me, I think everybody should take the mask off because they're bad for your health. You're breathing in your own air, you're breathing in, and that's creating parasites and everything into the gut. So it's making people ill, you know. I do have an example of a nurse, an A&E nurse at 30 years of age, was telling me the young ones were coming in with clots in the lung due to wearing masks. And that's coming from a medical person.
But also think about the fact that at the very height of this alleged pandemic, back in April, there was no talk of compulsory masks. No. In all of May, when the figures are dying away to nothing, there was no talk of compulsory masks. In June, when there were no cases virtually at all, there was no talk of compulsory masks. Now, when it's all but disappeared, it's gone. They are now bringing in compulsory masks. And the reason for that is they need visible evidence of terror.
Been advised here here by Irish Rail and on Garda Síochána, you cannot travel if you do not wear a mask. Okay, can we ask you to please leave the vicinity of the train station?
Now, I'd just like a reminder of statutory instrument 244/2020. That's for travelling on public transport. Okay, right? If you go to section 6(1)(a) and section 6(1)(b), right? Reasonable excuse. Okay. Right, I'm just informing you that I have, from my doctor, a letter, okay, with 2 medical exemptions.
There were times that I was pulled over by the Gardaí. Thankfully, a lot of the time they were quite polite, and I travelled on. There's also times I was kicked out of places for not wearing a mask or not being allowed in places. When I was travelling home, actually, I didn't want to wear a mask, and I didn't want to take a PCR test. It was very hard to get back. I tried the plane, wouldn't let me on. I tried the boat. I ended up having to smuggle myself back into the country.
So I thought I'll get the boat. They're usually a bit more laid back on the boat. But to get the boat, I had to get a train to Paris. And on the train, they were all wearing masks in Paris. They loved them over there. They even wear them outdoors. But when I was on the train, he was speaking French. I didn't understand. I thought he was telling me how attractive I was because he kept pointing at his face. And I was like, yeah, you have a nice face too, buddy. And then I realised he was talking about the mask, and I said, no, I can't do that. And then he brought me into the VIP carriage, by myself in a VIP carriage, and I thought, finally, people who are not wearing masks get the respect they deserve.
I mean, we can laugh about it now, but looking back, some of the things that were happening, like €9 for a meal, substantial meal, €9, and you can stand up, you have to wear a mask. When you sit down, you don't wear a mask. I mean, some of the rules were insanity. And at the same time, this is all gone. Vaccine passports, you have to have a passport in Ireland to have a cup of tea. Or I mean, that was a real thing. Let's not forget that. But at this time, the Garda Síochána, the police, not just in Ireland, all over the world, they were doing a mad dance. Do you remember the mad dance? There's doctors and nurses doing a weird dance, the Gardaí. How embarrassing for them. Like, there's video footage of these guys dancing. Lunatics.
Right from the very start of this health crisis, we have seen viral trends and efforts around Europe to try and raise public spirits during the pandemic. And the latest of these trends seems to involve national police forces performing a viral dance routine. It was first uploaded by the Swiss Federal Police on Twitter. Here you can see in a video that's gone viral, officers, socially distanced, dancing out a routine to Jerusalem. That's a music composed by the Master KG musician alongside vocals from an African artist. This video quickly going viral, and in this tweet, Swiss Federal Police offered up the challenge to other police forces around Europe. And that was quickly accepted by the Garda in Ireland. They released a statement on Twitter saying that they had stepped up to the plate and were now trying to raise spirits in accordance with their public duty.
Who is Ireland's enemy? Not Germany nor Austria, not Russia, France nor Spain that robbed and reaved this land of ours, that forged her heavy chains, but England. England of the wily words, the crafty, treacherous foe, 'twas England scourged our motherland, 'twas England laid her low. Rise, O dead of Ireland, and rouse your living men, for the time has come for us at last to win our own again, to sweep the English enemy from hill and glen and bay, and in your name, O holy dead, our sacred debt to pay. Now, just to clarify, my grandmother was not in the IRA. She was too old for the application process. But she learned that poem when she was 6. She learned it from her parents, and they probably learned it from theirs, and it goes on and back forever. I mean, our family can be traced back to Kinsale. They had land in Kinsale, Taigo Murtuk in 1601. That's one of those monumental years in Irish history that shaped this place, this land, for generations. The Battle of Kinsale. But we were ready. We could have won. We had the numbers. The clans had united. They had the weapons. The Spanish were there to help. They could have won, and they said if we won that war, we would have been free of the tyranny forever. The earls had to leave the country to France and Spain and Italy, and those who remained neutral were rewarded, but not with gold, with the iron of British blades. They were all slaughtered. And that same century, they brought in the Penal Acts. It was illegal to trade, illegal to celebrate your religion, illegal to travel 5 miles from your house. Act number 5, 1695.
For a period of 6 weeks, from midnight on Wednesday night, the entire country will move to level 5 of the framework for living with COVID-19.
People are being asked to stay at home, but will be able to go out for exercise as long as they stay within 5 kilometres of where they live.
Well, I think what people need to remember is under the law and the rule of law, we have inalienable rights and freedoms that can never be taken away from us by anyone, and they include the freedom to travel.
Are we going to let the very people who's destroying our society to make another new world for us? I don't think so. I think there's very few looking to the future and coming up with a solution, because we have changed. There is a new normal, and there's going to be a new normal.
We all have one thing in common now. We're all living in a new normal.
There will be a new normal. We just don't know what that new normal is yet.
Now masks are becoming the new normal.
What we will be seeking to do is find a new normal.
By the way, be a new normal.
To be the new norm.
In a new normal.
This is the new normal.
We will find our new normal.
The World Health Organization has warned in a BBC interview that we're entering a new phase where such a reality is, quote, a new normal.
A new normal.
New normal.
New normal. A new normal.
This will be the new normal.
What we're all going to have to figure out together is what our new normal looks like.
Oh, but sure, we're all friends with the English now. Oh yeah, Granny, is that right? Well, if that's the case, I'm going to marry a Protestant. She won't be coming into my house for tea now, thank you very much. And anyway, don't be interrupting my story with your silly nonsense and kicking over the lights that aren't really necessary for the show at all. If you listen to my story for once in your life, you might learn something. The Fomorians were coming. And when the Fomorians arrived, King Nua and his men stood up to greet them, all except for Lugh. Lugh stayed there. He stayed sitting, and he looked at King Nua and his men and said, "Why are you standing to greet these men? When I came, I had to do miracles just to get through the gate. It's no disrespect to you, Lugh, but if we don't, they'll come back with Balor and the rest of the Fomorian army, and they will slaughter us all." It's been too long. It's been too long the people of Ireland have been in fear. And he took his spear and he threw it right through the head of the leader of the Fomorians. King Nua, Lugh and their men killed all of the Fomorians except for 9 who were sent back with a message to Balor: the people of Ireland will not be slaves. And so the scene was set for the greatest battle that had ever happened in Ireland, the Battle of Moytura. Great were the numbers. Harsh were the sound of weapons battering off shields and cutting through flesh. Abundant was the flow of red blood over the bodies of white men. Women too. Not many women, they didn't fight back in those days, it wasn't traditional, but some of them were going on about equal rights, so they were put on the front line. Ogma was crushing men with rocks one at a time, but Balor was opening his eye and burning half a dozen men alive at a time. And Nua couldn't take it anymore. King Nua stood in front of Balor, 2 kings, 1 destiny, and Balor fell and the sword of light was raised, and just before it came crashing down upon the giant's neck, Balor did what he'd done so many times before. He opened his eye.
I mean, the heart for me is my grandmother. She's in a hospital and she's telling me this story about the ancient peoples of Ireland, the Tuatha Danann and the Fomorians, but the essence is about fear. It's about the people overcoming fear, and that stands today as it always did. And fear played such a big role because I was afraid a lot of the time. I was afraid travelling. I'm outside the 5K rule. The guards are pulling me over. Luckily, a lot of the time they were very reasonable. I think they kind of knew, at least the guards I met, they kind of knew, go on. They didn't want to have anything to do with it. But the feeling of fear was there. And sometimes there were guards or people calling the guards. One time I was on a roof in Dublin and this so-called authority, someone was acting like an authority, came in and started telling us to leave and said he was going to call the guards, and someone else shouted at us they're going to call the guards, and I did see that, and that saddened me that people would be calling the guards on their neighbours and friends.
He opened his eye and that was the end of King Nua.
Sorry folks, what are you all doing here?
You're very welcome. We saved you a seat, buddy.
This is a private development.
Perfect. Would you like to join us?
What are you doing here? Who gave you permission?
What are you doing here? And who gave you permission?
Because I'm the director in the management company.
Great. What's your name? Have you got identification?
What?
Have you got identification?
Richard, who lives here? What are you all doing?
Great. If you could come back with identification, that'd be perfect, please.
I'm ringing the cops now.
Okay.
You're allowed to clear down.
Please do.
That'd be great.
Go for it.
Why would you ring the cops?
Who gave you permission to be up here in a private development?
Do you have ID?
What?
Do you have ID?
My ID is inside my apartment.
Right, if you get
Go
that...
get it and come back to us.
Hey buddy, we'll be gone in half an hour, it's cool.
It's a private
We'll
development.
be gone in half an hour, we're very peaceful, 5 people.
There was permission given. It'll be gone in half an hour.
By who?
Don't worry about it, we'll be gone in
Jeez.
half an hour, that's it. Yeah.
Relax, you've got a few options. You can go and get your ID, and if you present ID and we're all happy with it, we'll get out of your way. Or else you can call the cops, or you can join us.
A drink. We'll get
You've
you a
got-
can of beer.
You've got options.
No.
There's no
your
worries,
choice.
nothing to stress about here.
Look,
Who
the
are you?
seat there.
Who are you? Who am I? I ask myself that every day. Who am I? Who am I? No, it's a good question. Like, am I a human being? Like, do you want my name, or do you want the legal entity that I got a birth certificate? What do you mean?
There's a story going on here.
It's a story and it's very good. Just sit and chill.
Yeah.
I think I'll ring the cops.
Do, please, yeah. Second that's
Ah, dude. That's not very nice of you.
And the battle was set. And somebody said, I'm going to go and call the cops.
You're going to fuck that. You're going to fuck that.
Say again?
We're without a mask.
Huh?
It's a private dwelling. Not in the park.
This is just this is a rooftop.
Are you worried?
Dwelling, isn't it? Is a rooftop a dwelling?
Should we finish the story?
Yeah, please.
We're out
All right, where are we in the story?
We're out the open air. Come on.
Why don't you come
Come on over.
Come on over.
But it's because it's dangerous at the moment right now.
Why?
Why?
The 42 households outside to the meeting, you're completely taking the piss. Not one of you wearing a mask.
We're all free individuals. We're free.
Go on, he's just getting...
It's cool, man. It's cool, it's cool, it's cool. It's cool, it's cool.
Brendan, you
it's not
can
gonna help.
join us.
Yeah, come on over.
Where was I
That's his
anyway?
name,
Where was
Brendan,
I?
isn't it? Join us.
Kieran, where was
Brendan, come on over.
I?
Yeah.
The battle.
You should apologise.
That's Brendan.
You should
Brendan,
apologise.
the close guy. Yeah.
Brendan, we'll be gone soon, man. Don't worry.
Come on over and join us for now.
We'll be gone in a few minutes.
That guy. He's on the manager.
Right, great. All right, thanks for your help. Gotcha. Thanks. All right, thanks.
Okay.
Hey, we're on to something. Nice.
All right, now we get a bit of fucking trouble for that one. His name's Aidan Killian. He's over there. Right, guys, I have to finish this story either way. So the battle.
Jesus, Mr. Hoity-toity.
Right.
Yeah, sorry.
So the battle set, and the women there, and they were dying, and Ogma, and then New was dead, and Lugh, all of the men ran. They ran. Somebody came and they said, look, the king's dead, and they all ran in fear. Except for Lugh. What did Lugh do? Did he run? No, he did not. Instead, he walked towards King Balor. Until he was so close that he was standing in the shadow of the head of the giant. The only thing he could see was Balor, and when Balor opened his eye, did he look away from the evil? No, he stared right into the evil. And when the eye opened, did he cower? No, he took his spear, looked right into the evil, and threw it right through it until Balor fell down, and the men came back, and they fought, and they won, and Ireland was free.
Yeah!
Is everything okay in here? I'll be back in 10 minutes, so if you could just finish up your visit, that would be great, please. Sorry, nurse, would you mind if I stay a little longer? I haven't seen my grandmother in a while. Well, I'm sorry, actually, we can't because there's a certain time with the rules. Look, I'd really appreciate if you can't. Look, I'll be back in 10 minutes. Granny, I can't believe them. How can she have the audacity to tell me that I can't see you? Who does she think she is? It's this little bit of power. People get a little bit of power and it grows like a virus inside them. And that it's not just the nurses. It's not her. It's the cops. It's us ratting on our neighbours. They're worse than the Fomorians. And you know what? We don't have a Lugh, Granny. We don't have a Lugh to save us. It's like us. We've got to do it, and we can't because our own relatives are going around acting like everything's okay. Like this is just normal. Oh, yeah, well, I just did it in the shops. And Granny, you know what? It's their fear. It's their fear. And their complicity means that I'm not going to be able to see you again.
I've really missed seeing the people that I love and
being able to go and visit the people that I love.
My hometown, I'm from the Mournes, and yes, there was a neighbour took his life, and he was in his 30s.
The solution, you're not going to like this one, the solution is going to be get us all vaccinated, get herd immunity, and we can all get on with it then.
This vaccine will need to be affordable as well as effective, because if we're to be safe, everyone will need to be safe. So a COVID-19 vaccine will need to be distributed equitably, fairly, and globally.
Of thousands who have put themselves on the line to prove to the country and the world that these are safe and effective products.
We are delivering millions of doses of a safe and effective vaccine.
To make sure that both that it's safe and that it's effective.
That they are safe and effective.
Vaccines are so rigorously studied and have proven to be both very safe and very effective.
Just as safe and just as effective as it is for everybody else.
This notion of this inflammation of the heart, while we've seen in a few and they've gotten better, we're not seeing that in these younger children. Again, very safe. And maybe most importantly, they've been effective.
All vaccines are tested before they are approved for use in Ireland.
When I was traveling, I often heard from people who were at my show. They'd tell me about a relative of theirs or a neighbor or a friend or someone they knew who got sick after taking the injection, and sometimes they died. Now, it's hard to quantify that stuff. Nowadays, they're talking about adverse effects and the excess deaths. And I haven't looked into it too much, but from what I've seen, I hope it's exaggerated because it looks. But, it's not funny, put it that way. It's hard to make funny.
Now, I won't get the vaccine. The vaccine is dangerous in its own right. And again, if I want to choose to have a vaccine, I will, but I don't.
My brother-in-law, he had to take the AstraZeneca just for fear, and he's gotten quite ill from that. So I'd actually have concerns the other way, to be honest.
It's experimental gene therapy. mRNA has never been used on humans before. We're the test subjects. Not doing it.
My husband's friend, actually, he didn't die from it, but he has a few health issues. He was rushed into hospital about 3 weeks ago, and he actually had a burning sensation in his chest and down his arm, and he called the ambulance at 999, and he got in, and they have actually said that it's quite likely an effect, and he has inflammation of the heart. Now, he was rushed in again there last week again for the second time, and I think he's going to be left now with inflammation of the heart. And so there are side effects here.
I don't even like calling it a vaccine. It doesn't stop you getting it, doesn't stop you passing on, whatever it is, because we don't know,
A pretty staggering 99.5% of all adults over the age of 18 here in Waterford are now fully vaccinated. That's the highest vaccination rate in Ireland and thought to be among the highest anywhere in the world. Despite this, County Waterford currently has the highest COVID infection rate in the country.
Was the Pfizer COVID vaccine tested on stopping the transmission of the virus before it entered the market?
Regarding the question around, did we know about stopping immunisation before it entered the market? No. We had to really move at the speed of science to really understand what is taking place in the market. And from that point of view, we had to do everything at risk.
Can the current Prime Minister think of anything he has promoted in partnership with huge businesses as safe and effective, which has ultimately harmed the British people? And will he use this opportunity to correct that safe and effective statement, or will he choose the same line as Tony Blair? Sit back, do nothing, and let the misery just continue to pile up.
Let me be unequivocal from this dispatch box that COVID vaccines are safe, Mr. Speaker.
We're still waiting for action. This includes the provision of the long-awaited vaccine damage compensation scheme, which you committed to progressing both as Minister for Health and as Taoiseach. So, Taoiseach, are we ever going to actually see the scheme, which I believe is being delayed within the Department of Health itself?
Well, again, I'm not sure I can add anything further to what the Minister said to you last month, but I will engage again. I do believe we do need a scheme, but I've no doubt that there are significant implications and complications in terms of the design of any such scheme, but I'm of a view that believes such a scheme should come through.
There's absolutely no doubt that this is not about health.
She took a sip of tea. Dano, did I ever tell you the story of Bray? Granny, no, you didn't, but I don't think we've got time for another story. Bray was standing at the battle right beside King Balor, one of his best soldiers. And when the battle was over, he ran for his life, but Lugh put the spear to his throat. But he did not kill him, because he knew that Bray had knowledge that the people of Ireland needed. He had the knowledge of life. He knew when to plough and when to harvest. And so Lugh promised him that he could keep his life in exchange for the knowledge, and Bray said, "How do I know you'll keep your promise?" And Lugh responded, "I am not the master you had before. I swear to you upon my honour." And so it was. Bray taught the people of Ireland when to plant the crops and how to produce a harvest, and before you knew it, they were in the fields laughing at the abundance of the grains, seeing as many colours of fruits as you can possibly imagine. But when Lugh saw them laughing and celebrating Bray, he said to himself, years from now, they'll be celebrating his name. And so he invited him that night to the court, and he sat him down beside him. And Lugh poured his cup of wine, and Lugh watched him fall to the ground and choke. And you know what, Dano? He watched him die, not with one eye like his grandfather, but with two. It's important in times of fear to remember the courage of our heroes, but also never to become our own enemy. Even at 96 years old, she was still teaching me.
Now, I wouldn't say I have the forgiveness and compassion that my grandmother had. In fact, to be honest, I still have a bit of resentment for the time that we were like not allowed in places, the medical apartheid, you know, when I had to show these COVID passes, health passes, that really got me.
And we came to a bar after climbing a mountain, and we just ordered 5 Guinness. And the woman said, "Yeah, sure. Can I see your COVID certificates?" Yeah. And my friend went, "You don't need to see any papers here." And she went, "Okay," and she walked off. And then she came back with the manager. Yeah. And the manager, who was really friendly, said, "Look, lads, I know this is a bit shit, but I have to ask for your papers or I can't serve you, but I'll give you the points, but you'll have to go outside." And at this moment, 2 people gave us a dirty look and they pulled up their masks. And I went, "Look, what are you going to do?" We just went outside. It was either that or you start a fight. So we went outside and we had our pints. We were angry. We had our pints, and then the couple who gave us a dirty look walked over and closed the window. Yeah. And that's when I said, yeah, there are some pricks in this world, and now they have the certificates to prove it. I said, "Granny, you know," because we always had a very honest relationship, myself and my grandma. I said, "You nearly died recently, Granny, and I was worried I wouldn't see you again." And she said, "Oh, I was worried for a moment, but..." And then she did something that I'd never seen her do before. She had doubt in her eyes. And I was like, "Granny." And then the nurse came in again, and I was like, "Listen, I just need time. I understand, but can I just have a few minutes to talk to my grandmother? 5 minutes, that's it." And she said, "Okay, but I have to come back in 5 minutes." "Granny, do you remember when I was 15 years old and I had all my money, £200, rolled up like a fat cigar, and I went to the Isle of Man on holidays? And when I got on the plane, I realised I'd lost it at the bus stop in Ballymun. And after a week, when I came back, you said, 'Let's pray to St. Anthony.' And I thought you were crazy. And you said, 'No, St. Anthony always helps me find things.' And you brought me to the church and we lit a candle and we prayed to St. Anthony. And then you got in the car and drove me to Ballymun and we looked in the bushes. My feet were getting tired. I was sore, and then you were like 70 at the time, you got on your hands and knees and showed me how to look properly. Granny, we're not going to find it, we should go back. And you didn't listen to me. You took me to another church in Ballymont to say another prayer, and you said I had to promise him money. I had to promise money to St. Anthony. I said, fine, £5. You said 40. I was like, no way. We agreed on 20. Do you remember? And then you went back and we looked in Spar, the shop. I was like, Granny, I wasn't even near this shop. What are you doing? And you insisted on looking on the notice board. There was nothing there on the notice board. And then you asked the woman. She said there was nothing there. And we were about to go. And then the other woman. Do you remember the woman? And she went into the bin. And she put her hands in the bin. And she took out the little yellow Post-it note with the faded pencil writing. And when you rang the number, they said they'd found some money. Do you remember the elderly couple? They were so friendly, and they brought us into their house and sat us down for tea and biscuits in the sitting room. We faced the fireplace. And then they handed me the £200. And all the time, Granny, when we were looking at that mantelpiece, on top of it, do you remember? There was the large statue of St. Anthony. And you never looked surprised, because from the moment that you said, let's go look for that money, you knew, because you knew, Granny, no matter what, we're always guided by the hands of God. Now, I don't know if my granny heard that last bit or not, because her eyes were closed, she was sleeping. But she was smiling, so I like to think that she did. And the nurse came in and said, time, and I thanked her for those extra few minutes. And I said goodbye to my grandmother from 2 meters apart as the nurse watched me. The aim was to do 32 counties, and I got 31 counties done. And then my grandmother, she passed away. God rest her soul. And the 32nd county was Westmeath, and someone had booked it, but I wasn't sure if I'd be able to do it. But they were so nice and friendly, and they encouraged me. So I said, right, let's give it a shot. It was in this 4 abbey, like an old abbey ruin, and I didn't know if anyone would turn up, but people turned up, and someone came up to me after the show, and she said she didn't know anything about the storytelling or the comedy. She just happened to be there because she went there every single week to pray to St. Anthony. I mean, it just hit me. She's really still with me. I know that she'd like me to say to you for the final words of the show, God bless you all.
We can't keep running and crying every time a flu epidemic comes along, or a bit stronger than a flu epidemic comes along. But we can't keep locking ourselves up like this either. You know, this is mad.
Well, the last year hasn't worked, so we've had, I don't know how many lockdowns now, 3 or 4. It doesn't seem to have really changed anything, so I think anything else but this.
This situation made an outlaw of a very law-abiding woman, but it actually turned out to be fun. So I think the real solution is to tune into our joy and have fun creating the dream.
You just have to stop giving your ignorant compliance to these people, you know, just going along with whatever they want.
So the solutions is for people to come together. 2, we need media channels and journalism that will openly debate the issues, tell people there is prevention and treatment. We need comedy and debate and open discussion.
Go out in nature, have some fresh air, do walks, have a social life.
Well, we keep our immune system strong.
For me, I've been in health, integrative healthcare for the last 10, 15 years now. I have a strong immune system, I look after my immune system, I get out in the sunshine, take my vitamins, my minerals, eat well.
Nobody is telling us these things. Why? Again, why are we not educated about how to live a healthy life, a good life?
Maybe we all need to go back to nature to find our true essence, our true soul.
Open your mind, look for the information.
Well, the solution is this. The solution is exactly what happened tonight.
As long as we have resilience, as long as we have courage, as long as we have integrity, and as long as we have fellowship and understanding of where the enemy comes from, then we will prevail. I have no doubt about it. You know, your granny was right, Aidan, and thank you for bringing your granny's testimony here tonight.
Just so you know, everybody in this car loves everybody in that car. See you later.
I travelled more around Ireland during lockdown than I had done for the whole of the rest of my life. I got to see sacred sites and dolmens and ancient places that are just mind-blowing. And mass rocks, I got to perform in forests. I'm very grateful for that. And the people who booked me, the people who took the risk, the courage they had, I'm really grateful for these people. They put me in their homes, they fed me, I stayed in their, and I stayed the night in their houses. I met their children, and I suppose it kind of brought back in this, like the way the Shanachie was treated in the old days. You know, they treated me like a real Shanachie. And now I've got friends. I've got real friends, like a tribe all over Ireland. I could go to any county in Ireland and, you know, reconnect with these people, these wonderful people. So now I have a greater love for Ireland because of the people and because I've seen it. And because of that tour, I was able to meet my wife. I met her on the tour, and now I've got this beautiful little baby girl. So I feel like that's like a little gift for doing it. It's like God gave me a little gift. And of course my grandmother, I definitely couldn't have done it without her, because she gave me my faith and whatever bit of spirit I have. And for that, I'm very grateful to my grandmother. I suppose now it's different. Now things are normal, you know, if you could call them that. But I travel around and I do gigs in theatres and venues. And I have to say, I enjoy, you know, not being worried about the guards turning up, you know, not trying to hide, you know, just being allowed to legally perform again. That's the new normal. My hope is that the people of Ireland and the world would never, ever allow anything like this to happen again. And I suppose if it did happen again, well then, I just have to write another story.